Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Disruption Talks, where we invite top experts to discuss digital acceleration, winning strategies, innovation, and scaling products. Please join me today in warmly welcoming our guest, Mirek Krzanik, who is the head of strategy at Nutreco. And the title of today's episode is Feeding the Future, Tech, AI, and the Next Era of Animal Nutrition. And this pun is actually intended because Nutreco is a global leader in animal nutrition and aquafeed. Hello, Mirek. How are you today?
Hey, Basha. I'm doing very well. How are you?
Very good as well. I'm pretty excited for this episode. And just to kick us off, I think I'd like to start with a small statement, and I'm super curious how you're going to follow us, to lead us with your answer to kick us off. Because what is very seen nowadays is that animal nutrition is under pressure to become more and more sustainable. And obviously, it has to keep. The demand, I would say, keeps on growing. So that is even more and more challenging. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges that Nutreco faces? And since it's a tech podcast, obviously, how does technology help to address these challenges?
That's a very good challenge, and it's hard to disagree with the statement. But I think we should take a step back and actually understand why is the challenge actually true, right? So when we think about the animal nutrition, why do we talk about it? We talk about it because the animal protein globally is still increasing, right? The population, which is now at about 8 billion people, in the next 15 to 20 years, or maybe 25 years, will hit probably 10 billion. In the lower case, 9.5 billion. That's additional 1.5 billion people to feed every day. On top of it, people are getting more affluent globally, right? So we are seeing that, when we look at an affluent world, people are consuming, let's say, 60, 70 grams of animal protein per day. But in the developing world, which is everything from South Asia through Africa to parts of Latin America, that consumption is 4 to 5 times lower. So we are expecting that as the world is becoming more affluent, also the animal consumption will be increasing, right? So where is the challenge coming, right? The challenge is coming not only from the hawks and Brussels who are trying to impose ever stricter regulations. The challenge is actually real because we are worried that we may run out of resources to produce animal nutrition to feed the animals that are required for people to actually consume proteins. And we have to remember that, yes, in Europe, there is a lot of, or Europe and Western world, there is a lot of discussion about, becoming less dependent on animal protein and substituting it with other sources of protein. But that requires actually a lot of knowledge, a lot of supplementation. To build a balanced diet, we are omnivores, right? We have to have a balanced diet composed of different ingredients. So for a lot of people in the developing world, actually, the animal sourced protein is the best way to build a sustainable diet for themselves. So we are challenged with it, right? So what we are currently observing is that the demand for animal protein is increasing by, let's say, 1 to 1.5% every year. And right. Already today, when you actually look at the numbers that are behind that, it's incredible, right? So every year, globally, we consume about 75 billion broilers, billion with the B. We are farming probably about 50 million dairy cows. There are probably over probably about 5 to 6 billion hens that lay eggs globally that are being maintained, right? Those animals actually consume 1.3 billion metric tons of feed every year. How much, if you want to visualize it, It's a normal truckload, the Polish truck that you see on the roads, they can carry 40 tons. So to carry all the feed that is globally consumed only by the farmed animals, so not the wild catch fish or not like this, only the farmed animals, that's about 33 million truckloads per annum of just feed. So this is an enormous exercise, right? And already now, when we look at the for instance, what is the contribution of animal husbandry to global to greenhouse emissions, that's probably about 10 to 15% of what human kind emits every year, right? So yes, the challenge is real on multiple levels. We have to remain, or we have to become more sustainable. We have to lower our impact on the planet from that industry. We have to, at the same time, continuously increase production, feed more people, to feed people in a better way so that they can live to their fullest potential throughout their lifetimes. And technology is actually one way in which we are trying to do that, right? So when you look at the industry at large, this is an incredibly fragmented industry, especially when you look at the Western world. I think the consolidation is happening in China, in the US, in other parts, but it's still pockets of consolidation. So we have an incredibly fragmented industry of animal farming that is only undergoing certain level of consolidation and adoption of technology, but it's not yet there. But when we think of where technology can help us, it's everywhere from more precise feeding, so that less feed is actually lost in the process and more is actually consumed by the animals. It's about better formulation, so that we actually feed the animals what they really need in the very given moment, in the very cycle of their moment of the cycle of their life, that we actually adapt it for whatever they consume locally, right? So for instance, a lot of cows would be grazing in their pastures. So taking that into account and supplementing that feed in a way that it's better for the animal, that's another area. Then we have, of course, a lot of research that is going into that field. So also trying to pull on all the knowledge globally, tens of universities developing research in that space and trying to synthesize actually insight out of it to continuously improve the feeding process. So a lot of use cases, and that's only, let's say, at the farm. And then when we look at ourselves, we are a company that operates in over 100 countries globally, right? So also there is a lot of manual work that comes with it, right? So to manage all of our accounts, to manage all of our customers, to help them in the right way, right? We are also trying to adopt more and more tools that are helping us to do it faster, better, more accurately, and making sure that everyone across the globe, regardless of whether they are working in our office in Guatemala or in China, they have access to the same knowledge and the same nutritional expertise.
Okay. Well, thank you for the portion of the statistics and building that context. I think it brings a lot of understanding around the size of the challenge and the background of it, really. And you started speaking about the tools that you're using, which is a nice segue to the next question that I wanted to ask you about. Can you share how Nutreco leverages AI across internal and external touch points?
So I think it's AI became a headline in a lot of contexts, right? I think what we are trying to make sure is that when we talk about AI, we don't diminish the actual value behind it, but we also recognize that it's not always AI that we need in our daily operations. Sometimes
Absolutely.
it's just machine learning models and so on.
Or Excel, simply Excel.
Or sometimes it's actually a simple Excel, right? But it is all about leveraging data to making ever better, faster decisions, right? Yeah. And we are using it at different levels. So kind of to structure a bit the thinking, right? So we go from the how do we actually impact the farm, the farmer and the animal at the farm, right? So this is the one bucket of where we apply different tools, AI, ML, but also robotics. Then there is the middle part, which is our touch point with the customer, right? So how do we make it better in the interaction with the customer? And then the third bucket is internal processes, where we also try to apply different tools, AI tools including, to be better at our business. And now going through those three buckets of let's say application. For instance, when we look at what we do at the farm, right? So on the one hand, we have actually integrated solutions. So we are one of the global leaders in shrimp feeds, right? Shrimp is farmed in just a couple of geographies globally, and we are supporting the industry very holistically. So we start with robotized feeders that allow to feed the shrimp in the pond. Shrimp is farmed in ponds. So we feed them at the very moment when we identify that the shrimp is going hungry, right? So we are not, as it used to be in the past, feeding them twice a day or once a day, actually losing a lot of feed in the process because it would just fall to the ground, to the bottom of the pond, and would never be consumed. With our technology, we actually are able to recognize when they are ready to eat, ready to be fed, and exactly at that moment they are receiving the feed, which really radically reduces the usage of feed in the process and actually accelerates their growth because they're never hungry, right? They are fed at the very right moment, right? So one is the robotized the feeders, but next to it has to be all of the tools that we had to develop to recognize when is the moment to feed them very accurately, and also what to feed them is the next part. So the formulations is another example of where we are applying actually AI tools, right? This is an area in which we are trying to kind of optimize for what the animals at the different stages need at the very moment. Not only for shrimp, we actually do it for all the different species, aqua and livestock species. So we are making sure that we are optimizing the formulations for the farmers, and they are really making sure that with all the ingredients that they are using on the farm, they can really optimize for the growth of animal or for the different other objectives, because some of them, their objectives may be reduce the greenhouse emissions, right? Greenhouse gas emissions, right? So we can also optimize for that. So depending on what is the objective of a farmer, we can be optimizing towards that goal. So that's on the farm. A couple of examples of how technology, how AI, how robotics can help in making it better, actually more efficient, which means more sustainable, which means more people can be fed at the same cost and the same impact on the environment. When we look at our interaction with the customer, right? So this middle part or the middle bucket of where we can apply technology. These are a lot of commercial tools that I think a lot of other industries could easily recognize, right? So everything from pricing, through assortment, through procurement. Those are the areas that we are trying to kind of make sure that we are leveraging the data that we have at our hand to make the best business choices, right? The more we believe that the more successful we are in the business, the more we can give back to the farmers and to the industry that is dependent on us. And the third bucket is the internal kind of digitization. I think this is where actual AI tools and generative AI tools or agentic tools are kicking in, right? So everything, as I said, a lot of our farmers are not particularly big, but still collaborate with us and still buy from us, right? So a weird example that I got a couple of weeks ago, we still receive, for instance, orders via email from our customers. It used to be basically picked up by someone from our sales team and then transferred to our tools that help with formulation and then ordering the batches of product, right? This is an excellent example of area that agentic AI can help us optimize the process. Yes, it can still arrive by email because that's the most convenient solution for the farmer sometimes in some geographies. And then we don't need this manual work performed by a human to actually convert it into an order for a product. So we are also trying to deploy this hyper automation in day-to-day processes and try to make sure that those manual, mundane tasks are easier for our employees.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you for layering these three areas. And I'm curious, do you still see a lot of room for how AI can improve all these three areas that you mentioned? I assume there's a lot of research on that, but then I'm curious about your opinion.
No, I think absolutely. So I think it's
Just the beginning.
Exactly, it's just the beginning of the path, and I think there is an enormous potential in this industry to still leverage data better, for us to leverage the data better, to be faster and more precise in our thing. When we think about our customers, right, and the farms, a shrimp farmer in Ecuador can be X times more efficient than a shrimp farmer in India or Vietnam, right? So just closing those gaps, which very often is related to deploying more technology, more analytics, more data analytics, could be closed. But the same goes for all the other species. There is a massive gap between what is achieved in terms of efficiency by the well-performing players versus the average of the industry. And I think a lot of the gap that we have towards the feeding the 10 billion people globally, I think most of that gap could be closed with the current farmland, with the current animal stocks. We don't have to necessarily increase it, because a lot of that could be closed with just better farming, which is better farming, better practice, better feed, and so on.
Okay, so it's all about using the knowledge that is already there in the data. And can you tell me how important are technology partners to you while you're planning your strategic initiatives in the area of digital, of course?
Yeah. So they are very important, right? So we understand that we are the experts in feed, maybe extending to nutrition, but we are by no means an expert in all the other areas that are very relevant for the industry, right? So for years we've been partnering with other companies, being it on the software side, on the AI side. But we are also partnering with startups. I think for several years now, we have our own corporate venture capital vehicle, New Frontiers, where we kind of co-invest in the most innovative startups, because we understand, we recognize what we are good at, and we recognize what we are not necessarily experts at, right? But we want to bring the technology closer to our business.
Okay. So if you're already developing and analyzing innovations in that area, I'm curious if you had one to bet on one innovation that will, transform agriculture and/or food production in the next 5-10 years, what would it be?
Very difficult question. There are many of them. So I think within the car, and let's focus only on animal farming, right? Let's not go into generic crops or vegetables and other areas. But when I look at the animal farming, within the current scope of animal nutrition, I would say that the precision farming will be the next big frontier, because we recognize how much of an improvement we can achieve by feeding better, feeding more precisely at the better moments. That the robotics combined with AI that understands when it should be applied and what should be applied in the feeding formulation, I think this will be an enormous kind of next frontier. And I believe that it's already picking up. So we are seeing, our partners in China, but also in the US, that are employing a lot more automated feeders, automated kind of optimization tools that help them. They also capture much more data about the animal, right? So we used to kind of look at the animal and think it grows healthy or not. But now more and more of them are actually, there are sensors that can recognize how they behave. There are camera solutions that can recognize how they are behaving on the farm, in the barn. And then we can actually optimize the feeding process so that we get better results, right? And this is now being adopted by the biggest players in some of the most advanced markets. But I think that will roll out across the industry, just because this gap to perfect performance or better performance is so large that there is still a lot of potential. So precision farming for me is the number one kind of data-driven area, where also AI will help a lot with being able to combine very different sources of insight into a single decision model. But also we have to be aware that there's a lot of thought put forward into more disruptive technologies, right? So we are also partnering with the industry, and we are operating the first plant producing feed for cell feed farming. Cell feed is basically a bioreactor in which you grow animal tissues without actually having the animal to produce it.
Wow.
Right? So you can grow the tissues of muscle tissues, fat tissues, and so on of different species in a bioreactor, right? So when you think of the efficiency of that process is a next level, right? Because you actually can spur the animal the process, right? It is a nascent industry. I think there are only a couple of hotspots in which those products can be consumed in a normal market, right? It's not experimental anymore, like for some parts of the US and the UK. But if that clicks in, if they reach a scale at which it indeed, as expected, is becoming cheaper to produce than actually animal farming, it can be an exponential growth area, right? Which will really radically change how protein, animal protein, is produced, right? So we have to be also open and careful about this kind of more disruptive change that can come with it. And there, it's even more science, it's even more data driven to manufacture that way.
Absolutely. That sounds like a huge disruption. And do you think that could be the case for the next 10 years?
So those products exist, right? And those products are already available in consumer markets, right? In just a couple of hotspots. Now the question is, how quickly the industry can scope, how quickly the regulatory bodies can actually, recognize that and and allow for a broader consumption of those products. That's an open question, but if it happens, I expect that then the industry can grow really rapidly.
Okay. Thank you very much for covering that as well. Future looks very, very interesting. And now I want to move a little bit to the past and focus on your career as well. When you're looking back at your career, what is the one lesson about leadership or leadership and strategy you wish you had learned earlier?
Well, that's a very good question, and requires a bit of a reflection. But I think one of the areas that I would definitely kind of recognize much earlier in my career is that perfect doesn't exist. That the perfect is the biggest enemy of good, right? So I wish in many areas I moved much faster, much sooner, much quicker, because the payoff for the early adopters is typically much higher than for the followers, right? So quicker to action. I think that would be the one leadership lesson that I wish I learned earlier.
Better than perfect.
Exactly.
That's how can it be said as well. And I'm thinking about doing a couple of quick questions here as well. So I'm just going to shoot a question and then you can go ahead with your answer. And the first one will be on AI and strategic initiatives. Can you give an example of complete bullshit in this area?
I would go with the humanoid robots.
Okay. And an underrated leadership skill in your opinion?
I think it's an underrated skill is typically the humility, I think, and the kind of ability to admit to a mistake. I think sometimes leaders are very prone to stick to their decisions and not be able to make a step back.
Right, because it might be a sign of weakness in their opinion, or how would you think about it?
I think so, and people are just scared of it, and also in a lot of cases there is a pressure coming from the rest of organization looking up to the leaders, where they are just expected or pushed to make a decision, and in that moment they very often feel that there is no other option. But I think a bit of more humility could help everyone around and
make things easier. Indeed. And the last one, your favorite trick for getting the team's attention?
Just silence. Don't talk
Okay.
over people. Stay silent. Wait for them to follow.
Okay. Well, yeah, silence actually always wakes up the crowd. I think even back in the days in the classroom, that always worked.
Yes, and silence is very disturbing, right? So if you are there in a meeting room and you suddenly become silent, very quickly people notice it and are very uncomfortable with it.
So silence is very loud in some way.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Mirek, thank you very, very much for today's conversation. It was a great pleasure meeting you and having this insightful podcast. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and you can hear this podcast probably today already on Spotify and other sources. Thank you very much, Mirek. Have a great day.
And have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.